All right, so here's another one that's really interesting as far as like Pokemon lore goes, as far as like, if you would want to consider like the origins of everything and the meaning behind all of it. And it's like, is there technically this war that's going around between like the good and the bad, kind of like sort of like a Ragnarok out of like Norse mythology? Like if anybody's ever watched like the Thor movies, for example, you remember how like Ragnarok was supposed to be like the war between the demons and the so-called angels and all that. So basically, as far as Pokemon goes, it would basically be like something like between like Arcturus and so basically the good gods versus the bad gods, because like one of them, maybe one of them's planning to overthrow the other or something along that nature, like, because it's like the universe is supposed to be like a balanced force, but it's also supposed to be like everything is, it coexists somehow. But every now and again they get into some quarrels because not everybody agrees on everything. For example, like Giratina is like supposed to be like the Satan of Pokemon, and it was like a prankster of some sort. So what it ended up happening was, Arcturus didn't like what Giratina was doing. Maybe Giratina was a fallen angel of Arcturus originally. Who knows? So basically, Arcturus banished Giratina to the distorted realm, and it just watched everything from there. And occasionally, it would escape from there, and it would just go back to it eventually. Arcturus didn't like send it back a second time, as far as we know. It was basically like Giratina was like free to do what it wanted to, but it wasn't. But at the same time, though, Giratina's powers are really like misunderstood. Although I still don't think it stands a chance against like Palkia and Dialga, like and even Arcturus if it once it equipped itself with the Draco Plate, because it would just finish it off with, Dragon type Judgment. So it's really interesting to think that, Giratina is supposed to be like it's a dead Pokemon basically. It's a big giant ghost. But it's really interesting how, if there really is a war going on, is Giratina really plotting something? Or better yet, like, let's think of it at a much larger scale. Maybe there's other Pokemon out there that are like, they're fighting a battle, like, again, good versus evil. Like a good example could be like, like Dusknoir, for example. While it's not a legendary, it's like considered to be like a Grim Reaper of some kind, and it brings people to the distorted realm. Another good example would be like Gengar. Like if you've ever played Pokemon Mystery Dungeons, he was dragging you basically through hell at that one point, trying to figure out, just because he wanted to torment souls and all that, and because he was a prankster spirit, but also, Gengar was supposed to be like Clefairy's or Cleffa's rival, or no, was it Clefable? No, Clefable, not Cleffa. That's the baby form. So you get to see the idea that Haunter, Ghastly, and they're all like somehow like related to this, like the good Pokemon versus the bad Pokemon, as like a way to balance out the ecosystem, but they're always keeping an eye on each other just to see how they can outdo each other. And so it really does make you wonder, how the world would really coexist in that fashion, because everybody's got different beliefs, but one side's trying to outdo the other, and the other side's trying to somehow relevate itself because maybe it wants control. Kind of reminds me, like in Star Ocean 2, you had like Gabrielle, the leader of the 10 wise men, and then we had Lucifer, who was the vice president, who's basically the second and highest in command, but he had his own agenda, but he wanted to overthrow Gabrielle. But truthfully speaking, there was no way in hell he even came close to how much power he had, even when his power was limited. So Lucifer was definitely scared of, said leader. So it was like, he was just looking for an opportunity to try to bypass that somehow. But he was kind of putting his true intentions like behind, though, so nobody really knew what he was really up to. But you knew, if he had the chance, he'd take it as soon as he got it. And I feel like the same thing can be said about like, like Giratina. Like, because what's really interesting, there was an image on the internet that somebody had drew where it would kind of look like Giratina, how it's like got that, it never blinks or anything, or maybe it does, but it's always got that serious look on its face, and it's just staring into like this mystical orb of some kind, and it was like watching like through the distorted realm of like what the mortals were doing from the other side, and you could see like people enjoying themselves, laughing, and Giratina was just like, because Giratina is basically a god of some kind, you know, so it possesses its own powers that, you know, most mortals probably don't even understand. Like, you know, Giratina can travel through time and space, again, like, you know, its origin form. It also has the ability to just vanish out of thin air. So it's, again, it's a ghost. It's got supernatural powers, basically. It's a pretty scary Pokemon when you kind of think about it in a way. Yeah, Giratina's definitely got its moments. Giratina is more of a, like, it's a Pokemon that definitely has its moments, and it definitely has its attributions based on what you think it can do. But I think Giratina was more than that, because, you know, maybe it has lost history, and maybe Giratina wasn't always a prankster spirit. Maybe Giratina despises Arcturus in a lot of ways, because maybe it truly misunderstands who it wanted to become. And so Arcturus, maybe this is like, you know, starting to question like who Arcturus really is too, you know. Maybe Arcturus comes off as like a, you know, a god, but even Arcturus isn't truly like always good. Maybe because it's not perfect, it's truly capable of still being evil. It might make the wrong decision every now and again. So it does wonder, you know, was Arcturus, aside from creating the universe, involved in the human race at some point, but then it just kind of stepped away because it like kind of figured, wow, you know, it just wanted to leave it on its own. And if it truly had to intervene, it would. But it just didn't want to intervene in such a bad way that it destroyed like the entire civilization that it created, or even more than that, you know. So it does make you think, you know, because like again, it talks about like what is a god, and you know, what do they do like regularly? You know, they obviously coexist somewhere, but it's like, you know, how advanced are they, and what do they do? What are they still trying to achieve aside from perfection? You know, what kind of envisions do they envision? You know, it's interesting to think about. Same thing with like Giratina, a Pokemon that was banished to, again, the distorted realm. What is the distorted realm? It's purgatory basically, but it's like what kind, like where is it really located? And the fact that they said that, oh, Giratina it was banished there like a prison, but Giratina could escape this whole time, and then it basically just called that distorted realm its home, so that way it just kind of hangs out there whenever it pleases. So it's kind of interesting to think about, you know. So like they got this war going on, and like again, you know, it could also mean like, you know, what other Pokemon, maybe they're testing, you know, competition, you know, because like everything in the universe, it's like survival of the fittest, natural law, and just to become somebody. So it's very possible that if Giratina or other Pokemon are plotting something, it's basically just to try to seize control of like maybe a certain territory. So like, and again, you know, it's understandable. I mean, you know, you look at like the nature of like other animals in real life, you know, they got to eat the food chain, and then you have the argument where it's like, again, natural law, they're territorial, or however you pronounce it, basically fighting over one's area, whether for sleep, mating, or reproducing rather. You know, different types of locational things. You know, some areas are preferred by certain animals, and some animals can only survive in a certain habitat. And that's basically what Pokemon has proven. You know, like some Pokemon like for example, like some Pokemon can only be found in a certain area. A good example, water type Pokemon can only be found in water. Some Pokemon that are water types can live on land, you know? So chances are you can find them like really close to a water reservoir. Again, it really depends, and it really depends on the region too. There could be very well a lot of different regions too. I mean, as Pokemon has proven, there's tons of Pokemon games. And then if you want to throw the hacks in there too, you know, depending on how they were designed carefully, because they usually do put a lot of time and effort into them. You know, you have like different Pokemon from different areas that they just chose a different habitat because that's where they belong. You know, like some of the ice Pokemon, you're only going to find them in like an ice cave, for example. And so So some Pokemon don't pose a threat, but like, some Pokemon are just, hanging out in their own area and doing their own thing. And then meanwhile, you have some other Pokemon that maybe they might be looking for revenge, because it really just depends on the kind of Pokemon it is. Like, that might have been their whole purpose to begin with. Maybe that's why they draw out such a mystery, because, they draw the attention on themselves. And then, more people are concerned, like, what kind of Pokemon is he really, if it's not really like that. Again, like Gengar being a Pokemon that, likes to pull pranks on people, and you come to find out, there was a connection between that and Clefable. And then again, you had the idea that like Giratina being like one of the legendaries. What else was Giratina's purpose? Where could Giratina have not just originated from, but what was its lost history, and what other Pokemon could be stronger than Giratina as far as like dark types? And like, or how about like, if you remember, like in X and Y, for example, I forget how to pronounce its name. It's like Zeneville, the one Pokemon that was the flying distorted bird, like where like, it would literally suck the life force out of things. But if it like, the day it died, it would just, it would still continue sucking the life force out of things, but it would just go back into like a crystal or it was a cascoon of some kind, a cocoon, and it would still continue to rebirth itself somehow. But then you had a Pokemon like Xerneas would come along, and it was rivals with it, trying to restore the world and trying to purify more life force, so that way anybody could enjoy it. Anybody that was basically a Pokemon that, if you could find the right life force, it would basically be a Pokemon that was willing to could basically grant you immortality of some kind, because like it's giving off such a beautiful aroma that it was able to save not only nature itself, but provided itself that it was able to save maybe its inhabitants as well. So it was a god of nature. It was a blissful god, basically, in the form of a deer. Or maybe like an elk of some kind, a very big, strong deer of some kind. It was Xerneas being one of my favorites. It's a real, if metaphorically speaking, it's a very strong one too, if you know how to use it correctly. But it's Xerneas is interesting though, as far as Pokemon goes. So yeah, you have other Pokemon that are also more involved than some of the other ones. And some of them just kind of stay on the sidelines, and they just watch from a distance. But maybe they're plotting something, maybe they're planning something, who knows. But again, what do you guys think? If you're not already subscribed to this channel, please tell me, and please subscribe too. Also, I try to make videos every day, so if you're not, if you like these kind of things, I'll be trying to make more. I'll be uploading more videos too. But this channel is basically just whatever, just try to throw things on it. And it's easier just to keep track of one thing. So, hey, if you have any questions, I got an answer for you.